All right, so this is your computer case. Basically protects everything inside. This one's an old one, obviously, but it still has your CD-ROM, power button, some USB drives, some lights for power, and some plugins for your microphone and your headphones. Basically, the way you open these cases is normally you have screws on the back. Some of them have little areas you just slide out, and there's or handles you just open, and you can see the inside of the computers. These older computers have screws in the back, so basically right here, 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 here. Once you take all those screws out of the back, you'll be able to open it up like so. And here's the inside of the computer. Now, there's a bunch of wires connected to everything and some not connected to things that need to be connected to things. But we're going to basically look at all these pieces. So if you give me a second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these wires out so that we can look at the internals of this computer. All right. So when you're working on a computer, there's a couple things that you need to concern yourself with. The first thing that you need to concern yourself with is safety, obviously. And then the tools, obviously, you need to open it. So in order to get this case open and take this lid off, one of the things that I did is I basically used a Phillips head screwdriver. Small Phillips head screwdriver will take out most of these components. So that is crucial into the process. Plus, another thing we need is we need a static strap. Sell these for super cheap, $5. But what it is it's basically going to be your grounding. So it's going to ground yourself. So when you put this on your wrist, what you want to do is you want to clip this to something metal. So any part of the computer that, or basically the case, is convenient and nice. What this does is it doesn't really protect you. What it is it's going to protect the pieces inside this computer. So speaking of inside this computer, once you have the case open and this, just for other safety purposes, there's a box right here. This is basically your power source, and you don't want to mess with the power source. Power source usually gets the voltage from the computer over here, and it's a dangerous component to the computer. Usually, even after you unplug the power source, it stays on and hot for a couple seconds. So definitely steer clear of any kind of equipment when you're working with this. People have been known to really, really injure themselves even worse when touching or working, manipulating, cutting cords on this to get this out. So this is fine. If you let it uncharge itself for 15 minutes or so, you're in good shape. Probably don't need that much time, but to be safe, give yourself a lot of time unplugged so that this thing can power down and it's safe to work with. So once you've got that, you'll notice that inside this computer, there's a bunch of different things that we're looking at here. A lot of interesting things. When we take notes today, I really want you just to kind of focus on the big picture, and I'm going to explain to you the components in English as if we were in high school, and this is all new to us. So the first thing that we're going to look at is this really intricate board down here. This is called the motherboard. So in your notes, you have motherboard on there. For a motherboard, basically it's a printed circuit board that allows information to go to one place to the next. For your notes, what I would recommend writing is that it's a roadmap. A roadmap. So, if something in the hard drive is trying to access a different part of the computer, it will follow this board, this roadmap. So here's a picture of it, or basically one of the taken out motherboards here. Again, a lot of stuff going on, fuses, RAM, etc. But you guys just need to know that this is a roadmap. So as far as a motherboard and roadmap, all you really got to worry about or look for when you're looking for this is that you have compatibility with your memory, chipset, and some people pay a little bit more money for a high quality processor built in. So sometimes in these they have a processor already. All these do. So your processor is going to be a big component to this. Now, speaking of processor, there is a processor underneath this portion right here. The processor, for those of you who are currently taking notes, I'm just going to call that the brains of the computer. The brains of the computer. So, what it really comes down to is it tells the computer everything to do. So you have a fan on top of it. This is not your CPU or computer processor, but it's underneath. Because those processors work super hard, they get hot, and this fan just removes the heat. So there's two types of fans here. There's just a regular fan up top here, and then there's also a fan right here that basically just distributes the heat into channels, so it becomes less hot. Now, underneath that fan, your processor looks like this. So again, this is the brains of the computer for notes. What are you looking for when you're looking for a processor? You're looking for clock speed, so it's processor speed, and you're also going to look for cores. So you see quad core, that means it's going to work 4 times as fast. Dual core, double. So, the processor really focuses on speed. And I would not recommend taking this off without gloves. I've had this out for a while. I've cleaned this up so you could see it. But sometimes there's this thing called thermal paste over the top of it, which is not really healthy for you to get all over your hands, and you get it in your food, and it's not healthy. So make sure you're wearing gloves too when you're working with this. And if you want to install a new one, lift it up, put it down, put the fan back on, and you're good to go. All right, that was processor. All right, so inside the computer, it's hard to see right here, but then there's two basically sticks that stick out, really big sticks that come out. And when you pull one out, and there's usually 2 or 4 or 6 even numbers, when you pull them out, you'll get this right here. This is called RAM, random access memory. This is storage space for the computers, but it's, for those of you taking notes, you want to call this short-term storage. Short-term storage. Now, there's 2 types of storage. RAM is the short-term, so hopefully you got that in your notes. And you're really concerned about what to look for is the amount of memory. So you want to look at the amount when you're looking for this. Sometimes you'll see DDR3, DDR4. You want to look at bigger RAM. So these can be a little bit pricey when you're buying things. So buy from a reputable company. Now, that was RAM, short-term memory. Now, speaking of memory, there's a different form of memory here, and that's right here on this computer. So right here, if I was to unscrew that and pull it out, it would look like this. It's called a hard drive. Hard drive. So the hard drive, for those of you taking notes, is the long-term memory. The long-term memory. And what you're looking for there, and when you're looking for the long-term memory in the hard drive, is you're looking for the amount of space. Amount of space. That's one big component. There's also this thing called SATA, S-A-T-A, that you might want to concern yourself with. HDD is another type, but for the most part, you're going to look for space and whether or not it's SATA or HDD. Okay, they tell me right here that it's a SATA drive, so I know that the type of drive that it is, or hard drive that it is. All right, cool. Long-term memory. This is where I would install programs on the computer that take really long to load because they're big. And this is where we have cached web pages, documents that pull up really fast. So this is your short term. All right, what else is there to look at in here? So we also have an optical drive, just to kind of let you guys know, optical drive. That's in the front. This is your CD drive, writable. You want to look at speeds. That's kind of old-fashioned. Some come with it, some don't. Most of the generic hard or optical drive, CD drives that you get these days are fine. to work with. All right. So as you're working here, you sometimes have this thing called a graphics card. Now, on your motherboard, there should be a graphics card already installed, so that you're able to get pictures up on your screen. But sometimes you want a better one. If you're really processing a lot of different things, and you don't want your computer to lag when you're playing a video game, so you want a graphics card. And normally, I don't have a graphics card here, but it's a big card that inserts here, and for those of you taking notes on the graphics card, it improves the quality of video game, and so it improves the quality of the video. I'll just say that. It's very generic. Um, so again, some of the bigger brands that you want to look for, and GeForce, etc. You'll see that there are a couple company names that make um, your video cards or your graphic cards, and uh, really what it comes down to is video RAM, and you can see by price which ones are better quality when you search. All right, so the sound card too, usually they're built in the motherboard. We're not concerned about them as much anymore. The motherboard has them. Basically, a sound card increases the quality of the sound, but for general use, we don't need to worry about it too much. Other things to be incorporated into a computer system, we talked about the case. You do definitely want to keep track of whether or not your components fit, and there's some websites that help you figure that out that I'll share with you. But then in the same token, does it look cool? Does it look the way you want it to look? That's always great. That also goes for your mouse and keyboard. Your mouse and keyboard, I'm not going to go over and show you guys that because your mouse, you probably have one in front of you right now, and your monitor, you're probably looking at one right now. So those are two things that we don't need to necessarily talk about too much. Power supply, you need a power supply to work with your computer. So definitely don't forget to leave that out. But we'll visit some websites that's going to help us through kind of selecting different things on our computer. So once you're done working with the computer, you got plugged in or not plugged in. You don't want to plug it in if you're working on it. You want to, when you're done touching, again, this is not for your safety more than it is for the safety of the equipment. You typically don't want to touch components like this on the certain areas. Usually the side is best. The side is best. That way you're not damaging it with your own static. All right. So that's the computer in a nutshell. And hopefully you took some notes, and we'll answer other questions when we get back together.